1542, Hakone Pass. Several children are hung above roaring flames by tied feet, their black robes dancing in firelight while sweat drips off their exhausted faces. Some just hang limply, corpses of those who didn't meet the standard. One of the instructors remarks that the kids this term were all dullards, but to his surprise, one remains alive among the flock of bodies. Number 8, the only survivor, who already shows aptitude for the release of fire. His net trial is that of an executioner, and it is a task he fulfills without hesitation: kill the enemy. The only thought dancing across his mind while standing in a field of mutilated opponents, the snow and stone stained by pools of blood. The elder overseeing him smiles darkly, knowing this one was the next leader without competition. We now jump to 1546, where the night battle of Kawagoe has ended. Fallen soldiers lie under burned flags. Only one remains standing, flames dancing off of his bandaged arm, while blood coats him like a mark of pride. Dead eyes stare forth to the next victims as more of his comrades join the field, winter snow howling across the plains. The people born to die in the shadows of history were prodigies, devoted only to the rigorous training of the arcane assassin techniques passed through generations. We now leap forth once more to a palace high in the mountains, where a bird lands to observe the ninjas and their lord. He commends them on their magnificent attack, being delighted with the overwhelming victory. For their hard work, they would be granted stipends, which means a salary and provisions. Great things are further expected of them, and to this effect, Fuuma Kotarou is at his command. They are ordered to step back and instantly vanish, with another ninja warning that the Fuuma clan is not to be trusted. Even among ninjas, they were monsters created by hellish training, leaving battlefields that held no trace of form nor shape. Their ninjutsu surpassed conventional ways and went into the realm of natural disasters. But the green-eyed ninja is told not to worry, for the Fuuma have an ironclad rule to serve the Hojo clan, which this man is the leader of. Those who shatter this rule are killed, and they are seen as no more than convenient tools. We now head to 1579, the Battle of Kisigawa, where banners are high and footmen are marched forth. Ahead of the army, Kotarou stands alone, and the order to kill him goes out. He simply lowers his mask, opens his mouth, and clamps his teeth together. The following fire transformation jutsu turns the approaching soldiers into burning corpses, and more ninja pop out of the ground to join their leader. The man on his headless horse only needs to take one look before his head is turned to mush, the armor doing nothing to protect him from death. A bird flies over the field, and Kotarou looks up at it, reiterating that killing is everything to him. His hair lengthens with years, whitening from age, yet he keeps killing in order to survive. Come the year 1613, he is 80 years old, with a peg leg and being led by chains. His hands are bloody, his body is freezing in the winter sun. As he is guided through the streets by warriors, people stand aside and recognize him. He's called a monster, a demon even. This was the year he was captured by the Edo shogunate. The Hojo clan he served was defeated and destroyed, along with his hidden village home. As he kneels before them, a relic of a warrior, he is asked for any last words he might have, and simply responds with none. The soldier about to execute him makes a remark that seems to annoy Kotarou, and the glare he's given sends shivers down his spine. To meet his final end in such a state, why him? Why had he lived so long? Not once has he feared death, not in concept nor reality. Glancing up at a roof, he sees a bird called a kite, and asks if it will live long enough and watch over him. But this word, so foreign in nature to him, is what triggers the realization. From his childhood, he dreamed of it. He had been trapped until now in this body, living until now, until his head is cleaved off by the way of katana. His eyes turn vacant, his stare blank, yet a pink finger and a black nail reach out from the abyss, choosing him. A gate of tormented faces, a flame of purple and cyan, and the simple order to live again. Kotarou reopens his eyes to the sight of guts, being unable to breathe. In a fit of instinct, he uses fire transformation to destroy the dragon that had eaten him, and we get our first glimpse of his new body. As he falls from the sky, a new world awaits his eyes, one of floating lands, lush greenery, giant skulls, and vibrant color. The dragon smashes into the castle below them, its decapitated neck burning violently, and Kotarou safely lands as a newborn in front of hideous gremlin creatures that he takes as demons. So, this is what reincarnation was like? As the dragon explodes in the sky, a person far below views the sight with tempered curiosity. The baby who falls from it is now free in this new world. Now for everyone's favorite time, history class. Nearly 100 years prior, the Demon Lord was defeated by a hero named Arslad, have fun saying that with a straight face, which launched the world into peace. The party he led were dubbed the Four Great Heroes, becoming legends beyond comparison. However, with the later emergence of a new Demon Lord, it all reset. The power of demonic kin grew exponentially until most of the surface had become the demon realm. This was their era of power, and standing over the corpse of the dragon and a destroyed castle, a big and angry goblin with one hell of a sword. This was the Goblin King, and he wasn't too pleased by the appearance of a human baby, much less his home being wrecked. He kicks Kotarou out of the way as his minions tell him the obvious. This place was now a wreck. It was time for a messy execution, killing the baby to blow off some steam. One slash later, and the dragon's skin cracks like rock with a loud crunch. Unfortunately for him, Kotarou still has some mobility, even as an infant, noting just how close he came to dying again. The goblins are in a bit of disbelief that a mere child could dodge, and while it is very hard for him to move as naturally as he'd like, Kotarou doesn't find it impossible. He then does the "you are already dead" trick with the Goblin King and snaps his neck in one swift movement, following it up with his borrowed fire ninjutsu. From victorious and living in a castle to a one-hit kill, the big scary goblin is roasted in more ways than one. This was a higher level magic than anything these creeps had ever seen. After that, Miss Adventurer is climbing the stalk that the castle was built on, reminiscing over how it used to belong to the elves. But the instant she reaches the top of the stairs, well, to say a bloodbath is an understatement. More like blood sea. Spotting the baby she was looking for amidst all the chaos, she walks over while wondering how it did all of this. Pulling her cloak back to get some sun on her face, we see that she's not just an elfess, but Hairi Titania of the Great Heroes. Briefly viewing the memories of Kotarou, we find out that his parents were killed in an inferno when the hidden village he lived in was razed. As the only survivor, the ninjas responsible, presumably the Fuuma clan, remarked that it could be the way of a ninja. The only person he could trust the entire previous life was himself. And why now would he see such a memory? Well, maybe Hairi can answer that, as she holds him all wrapped up in a cloth, wearing armor? Rain check on that one, Chief. At the very least, she notices him waking up and looks down with curiosity. Putting him on the rock she was sitting on, she greets him as Fuuma Kotarou, giving her own name. She took the liberty of going through his memories without permission and asks if he'd allow her to remain by his side. He'd experienced some inconvenience in his current state, and she'd be happy to help him with anything. Instantly quiet and thoughtful, Kotarou resolves himself to end her life should anything foolish be tried. She'd make a great guide, and he had to use whatever he could find to get acquainted with the lay of the land and its people. He allows it and she gives him a big old hug, which begins to suffocate him for two big reasons. Ignoring the fluster, she genuinely smiles at him, and for the very first time in his life, he experiences what healthy interactions are like. By instinct, he reminds himself that kindness is unnecessary and dulls the senses. That way of thinking could be exactly what she wanted. He then proceeds to fall asleep, still being in the body of a baby at the end of the day, and wondering how long it had been since he'd slept like this. The killing intent always eyeing him up in the old world was now gone, and for the first time, he can actually relax. Hairi reaffirms that he is not alone in this new place, and we get a glimpse of her reading through his memories. The bloodshed, coldness, and killing intent scares her. The sight of a bloody baby with brutality in their eyes is the final image before she came into the picture. For the first time in his life, someone sheds tears over him. To suppress your emotions for your entire life, those ninja were certainly something else. One wrong step and he could fall into the hands of the demonkin. However, there was one thing she saw in his heart: a little light. No matter how lonely he was, he always had hope. He never succumbed to despair, which gives him the qualities of a hero. In this life, she wanted him to know love. But before that, a large shadow looms over them from behind. The Goblin King wasn't down and out just yet, somehow. This couldn't be happening to him. A human baby take the Great King out? An overzealous hand reaches out for Hairi, but Kotarou briefly wakes up from his spidey senses tingling, and with a single swipe of his infant hand, the king is blown away. The elven woman is none the wiser to what just happened, and upon a zoom out, we see that several background mountains were also cut apart like wet toilet paper. While Kotarou goes back to sleep, a demonic fly is spotted above them. A quick air rend spell puts an end to it, and now that they've been detected by the demonkin, it was once more time for them to run. The quickest way out of the demon territory was through the old elven woods, now called the Rotwood Forest. While they travel to it, the demon lord is getting a report that Hairi Titania has been located. The giant eye of wrong story. The giant eye of their leader stares down at the 10 soldiers, with one remarking that she was alive after all. Another says that this was a pointless report, as she had lost her former power, but she wasn't the problem. The baby with her was. Upon showing the rest of them the flames that engulfed the former Goblin King, they instantly realize that this wasn't just a baby. They are then ordered to tell the Fairy King that the Elfess is to die, and the child be brought to them. They vow to do his bidding, and we now go back to Hairi, who is running through the forest with Kotarou in her arms, being chased by several of the giant bugs. Their only option was to flee, but air support also comes in from the front, to which an air rupture spell awaits. The boy notes that his savior was quite skilled, but they still have one big problem dead ahead: a giant flying critter who won't be so easily killed. Hairi is worried that there are too many of these things, and if only she had her former strength, this would be a cakewalk. But before the big bugger can attack, a bunch of small lights appear in front of it, getting its attention. These little pixie creatures say that this was their prey, and it seems to take the hint, turning around and buzzing off. They then turn to her, all cute and innocent, before opening a third eye and gaining sharp teeth. Hairi frets that she couldn't avoid them after all, and she's told to hand over the baby. That is, until Kotarou grabs a few of them, in what might be taken as an NSFW grip. Moving on quickly, the little creatures attempt to save their sisters by shooting poison needles at the baby. But that constitutes killing intent. And, well, to say his instincts are scary would be an understatement. Catching all the darts without taking a single scratch himself, the return to sender initiative is taken with a nat 20. Nailing each of the critters in various instant death places, Kotarou is annoyed that they ruined his mood. But while he is sleepy and almost falls to the floor, Hairi saves him from a massive spike, which impales just behind where he was standing. She doesn't do it without consequence, as the back of her totally useful armor has been busted and her back bleeds quite a bit. Since she was grazed, the poison would be in her by now, and the current head of the folk here steps forth in what looks like actual armor. The two women seem to recognize each other, as Hairi is called by name and the enemy is dubbed Elva. Hairi is told to hand over the baby before she dies so Elva can be recognized as one of the 10 demons. The elf girl is shocked that she would even consider it, but she's told to be silent as her enemy pulls a lance of sorts from her mouth. Quite disgusting to look at, and blows the three behind them away with a clean hit. She can still move a little? Impressive. But this concentrated venom would melt everything it touched, meaning she couldn't afford to take a single hit further. But Hairi isn't ready to give up just yet, and holds on to the neck piece she's wearing. Elva comes in for the final strike, but Kotarou has other ideas and blocks it with one finger. No you don't. For the first time in his 2 lives, the baby feels like he cannot abandon someone. Elva now understands why the demonkin want him now, and he admits to himself that this body is highly inconvenient due to its lack of stamina. But using a technique called finger sever, the enemy is torn to shreds without a care in the world. It does appear to have some level of recoil though, and Elva isn't dead just yet. Hairi asks that he doesn't kill her yet, and she admits the want to save her enemy. Once upon a time, the elfkin and fairykin lived together peacefully in this forest of the giant tree. They formed a deep alliance, and the place grew and grew, with the elfkin being on top of governance with their superior wisdom. The fairykin brought numbers and warriors to the equation, making a perfect triangle. The elfkin used their supposed allies who were below in civilization. As you might imagine, this was quickly the cause of hatred and dark emotions. War was the natural result, and Hairi couldn't do anything about it because she was nothing but a young princess at the time. This proves to him that it's the same in every world. Those who use versus those who are being used. Still, she held spirited conviction at a young age, or so he thinks, until we learn that this happened only 150 years ago. Elva claims this to be an old tale that rots the ears, and her poison should have immobilized Hairi by now. She was going to die one way or another, as killing a princess would slightly alleviate the fairykin's regrets. The elfish tries to convince her that this conflict was meaningless and would destroy her, but Elva was a princess in that war too. That they should meet again like this was simply destiny itself calling out. A contract seal burns brightly around her neck, drawing on power from the Demon Lord. We now leap back in time a bit to when Hairi and Elva are children, the former asking why conflicts never end in this world. Humankin, demonkin, bestkin. Everyone was living in the same place. A young Elva claims that the forest would be fine in the long run, and that the two of them had always been friends. It would be the same from then on. Leaping to the present, Elva is crying while getting mutated horribly by the power she sought after. She instantly goes to kill them, and Hairi uses the power she was saving for another person's sake, releasing it at just the right time to avoid getting shanked. When the transformation is complete, the necklace shatters, and Elva knows she's done for, because Hairi should have lost this power. 2 spells cure her ailments and stamina without a second thought, relieving both the sleepiness and weight of Kotarou's body as well. This was Hairi's power when she was a great sage. With a single finger pointed at Elva, it's vowed that she will be saved, and a freezing sacred stigmata is cast upon her. The sigil burning over her chest seems to free her. Hairi wants to cherish their old friendship and maybe nurture it back to health one day. Elva remembers being taken in by the demonkin's words back then, and Kotarou comes towards her with an olive branch of peace in the form of his little hand, only for Elva to get crushed under the boot of a demon. To receive a best bestowed seal and end up like this was unforgivable. I hate this one already. The newcomer laughs at their supposed comrade's misfortune, loving the agony of Elva's writhing under her boot. This was Aprou, one of the 10 demon lords mentioned before who are in service directly to their lord. Hairi recognizes her instantly, while Kotarou stares at the fallen and bloodied woman. The body transformation was the contract seal going out of control, meaning she couldn't handle it after all. Elva moves her friends out of the way before striking with a Karmic Inferno annihilation spell, her chest heaving after using that much energy at once. Aside from Kotarou being annoyed at this levitation, Opru is really mad that she got covered in dirt from the blast. She survived it by way of a full ability enhancement from the contract seal also present around her own neck, and with a simple dash forward, she is already on top of Hairi, who defends herself with the rocks lying around. A single exploding demon fist, yes, that is the actual name, takes care of that little problem, only for Opru to find a much bigger one waiting for her after the fact. A charged, freezing sacred stigmata, ready to lock her seal up. Unfortunately for Hairi, Opru sees it coming, and shifts her weight midair to dodge. It was too close for comfort, and she did expect at least this much of the Elfkin's strongest and so-called Great Sage. Her timer has also run out, and the demoness watches with glee as the elf's eyes return to normal. Her magic was depleted, and she drained all that she had left for naught. But it didn't matter anymore. With a nonchalant smile, the pink menace raises her fist. But before she strikes, she decides to taunt poor Hairi. Repeating the things she had said to Elva in manipulative intent, she had asked the Fairy King if they were happy with how things were. The regret of her comrades and humiliation that came with it. This was a wonderfully furious emotion that she could draw meaning from, or were they going to live their lives suppressing it? Let it out, open the beast cage, and the Demon Lord would be pleased with the power of the Fairykin as a warrior race. Following this, Opru laughs heartedly, like it's the best joke in the world, claiming that Elva was dumb as a bug for falling into that mental trick. The Fairykin worked well as pawns because there were so many of them, and Hairi knew it very well, didn't she? Being the last elven princess, said princess does not take it well, and the tormented rage on her face is exactly what this demoness wants to see. She'd be worth killing. I think a very angry Kotarou would disagree. Opru readies her swing with some comical motions and goes in for the final shot, about to make Hairi into a fine red mist. Kotarou does not approve and uses one of his many ninja techniques to get between the two women, halting the pink one's fist with his mere hand. The death glare he gives her from those hot red eyes is enough to make even this demonkin sweat bullets. The force of her punch is returned to sender, turning what remains of the enemy into a mangled mess. The catch is that this technique stores received force within the body and redirects it back, but that doesn't even seem to have hindered him. Killing might have been everything to him, but for the first time, he feels like he doesn't want to lose someone. He sympathized with Elva as well, since she was in a similar situation to his own. Looks like our little man does possess a heart. But as it turns out, Opru isn't dead just yet. Her mangled body is still kicking, and Hairi is surprised that Kotarou's technique ever pierced the contract seal's protections. The pink annoyance isn't done yet though, and uses a full stamina recovery spell. Her body is almost instantly in one piece again, and she claims to have fallen for the baby. Pretty sure that's illegal. She then tries to convince him with sweetened words that he belongs on the side of the demonkin because he's a natural-born murderer who knows of dark emotions, and if he joined them, they could rule the world. While he does consider it for a moment, he very quickly comes to the conclusion of rejection and sticks his tongue at her to symbolize it. Instead of admitting defeat, she powers up to something that would make pro wrestlers jealous and says she'll take him back by force. Using her full power and packing a serious punch, she would make him submit through difference in power. Hairi assumes that this blow will kill him because surely there's an upper limit to what it can withstand, and by conventional logic, there would be. But this is manga logic, and he is the main character. The force is recoiled into Opru, and this time it outright disintegrates her. This boy hates those who try and dominate him. Not only does Opru get ripped apart by her own punch, but the force of the blast also clears out a massive part of the forest they're in. It exhausts him to the point of falling asleep standing, so Hairi picks him up and tells him to sleep well. He passes out in her arms, and the barely alive Elva is impressed that a human could wipe out one of the 10 demons in a single blow. The Elfess said she'd heal her friend post-haste, but is told to stop by virtue of the decay her body is undergoing from breaking the contract seal. To that merit, she starts chirping away here and there, talking about how the Fairykin were arrogant in trying to obtain more than they deserved. Hairi was to go, like, now, because the demonkin would use all they had to get their hands on that baby. Elva gives her the gift of fairy boots, which is S-rank equipment that triples speed and allows slight levitation. If she had nowhere to go, then head far east of the forest and through the Warlord Mountains to Hydrat. It was the only place in the world which continued to resist demonkind, the so-called final stronghold. They were obviously seeking strong people from all over the world, but Elva is corrected on one thing. Kotarou and her weren't master and student, but party members and friends. She would make their childhood dream a reality, a peaceful world where nobody dominates anyone else. With that last note, Elva disintegrates entirely, her final words being that she looks forward to this future from the other side. Meanwhile, one of Opru's eyes and a portion of her spine land elsewhere, the contract seal still being fully intact and protected by its powerful magics. The pink menace comes back to life, wondering who that brat was since no baby she's ever seen could pull a trick like him, and a familiar booming voice claims disappointment from behind her. The Demon Lord was watching. The contract seal clenches her newly reformed throat tight. He picked her up when she was on the verge of death, after her clan was obliterated by the humans. He gave her power, but a lower species such as the Ogrekin was nothing but weak after all. Aperu tries to ask him for patience, but there is none left for her, and the head of the pink menace hits the grass floor, lifeless. Her time of bringing pain and suffering to others had come to an end, with a face contorted in a silent scream of horror. Another presence watches from above, another one of the 10 demons. Ozrus. Hyrie dashes through the forest towards a cliff and stops right before going off and claims that they made it. The Warlord Mountains were in sight already, meaning them boots had done their job. The land was filled with craters blasted into the rock and flame spouts burning over the remnants of battle. This is where the Demon Lord and Hyrie's hero party had fought, with the war against demons continuing even now. We see an example of it across the battlefield, where a warrior is decapitated outright. This is the only place in this world that hasn't yet been taken over by the Demonkin. The people of Hydrat were desperately hoping for strong individuals like him. Leaping back to the battlefield, a few warriors are facing off against regular demons, who say that the humans just keep coming out of the woodwork. A healer in the background was tending to a wounded person who grits their teeth, wanting to stay alive just a little longer. If they can just hold out, reinforcement would arrive. Disregarding the Geneva Convention, the demons aim straight for the healer, who looks up just in time to see them coming. But before they can so much as touch her, it's their turn to have their heads lopped off. A woman with animal ears, I'm assuming wolf, stands over the corpse of an enemy, foot resting on it. Taking a closer look, she's covered in old scars of battle, which wouldn't be the case if she'd learned what the word armor means. This was Miria Barbatos of the 4 Great Heroes, and she was not happy to be around the Demonkin. Her sense of smell is one in a more spiritual sense, and these demons reek. She would kill them, every single one of them, down to the last one, rip and tear until it is done. Her nickname is as fitting as they come, the War God. With a powerful leap, she slices through their ranks like wet paper as Hyrie skims towards the capital as fast as possible, carrying a sleeping Kotarou in her arms. The path intersects when she passes by the battle Miria is taking part of, and the stench of astral blood overwhelms her. She'd never had an odor this pungent before. It was as if it was clinging to the soul of the person passing by. Thinking it's another Demonkin, she goes straight for the kill while covered in blood herself, targeting Hyrie, who looks up just in time to stop her comrade from skewering them. Meanwhile, Ozrus is following from a distance, having picked up where they were headed, and it just so happened to be his ideal battlefield. He knows that Kotarou is not to be underestimated, or he'd end up like Aperu. Thus, he would take this opportunity to slaughter everyone. Miria looks down to see Kotarou in the arms of her old friend, and within a nigh instant, he's on her head and playing with her ears, which seems to tickle. She manages to grab and throw him to the floor with promises of killing and death, but before Hyrie can reach him, the ground bursts open to entire columns made of skeletal remains. As this place was rife with buried bones for Ozrus to use, and he does so with a large-scale necromancy spell. He finds it satisfying and even comical that the other humankin would be the ones to kill these two. Needless to say, Miria makes short work of those aiming to take her life, slicing and dicing through everything in the way. She instantly recognizes what's going on at a glance, cursing out the Demonkin for their foul tricks. The ability of Fang Sword wipes out what's left of them, but more just keep coming. There wasn't an end to this since they were standing on a centuries-old battlefield, but while Miria is in battle, she suddenly shrieks as Kotarou grabs onto her fluffy tail. Once again yeeting him to the floor, Ozrus takes his chance and uses a technique with his own bones, which are specially hardened to pierce anything. Don't take that out of context. Miria turns to see him, and he reminds her that they're all the toys of demonkind. It was fun watching these humans murder each other. The Demon Lord would have destroyed Hydrat in a single night if he really wanted to. The Beast Woman tries to counter with one of her blades, but it gets snapped like a piece of glass. With Kotarou being before her in defense, that bloody scent wasn't coming from Hyrie. It was far more intense. It was coming from this kid. The ninja thinks that controlling corpses was quite a mundane technique, and to that effect, he uses one of Fuuma's 12 forbidden arts, summoning from the underworld. The ninjutsu of the Fuuma surpasses ordinary techniques. None of the other clans were able to reach these heights, but by virtue of wandering the border world between life and death constantly, some people were able to communicate with the dead. In the present, he sheds a little blood to summon those from the underworld, and a fountain of red bursts forth from the floor. Kotarou's servant appears and slowly morphs into a humane appearance. Miria and Hyrie watching in disbelief as they seem to recognize the magical energies. A demon of sorts stands before them, and while Ozrus does attempt to attack it, what he's doing is going against another demon lord named Servain. Wait, hold up. Are you telling me that a literal kid summoned one of the most powerful beings in existence of that world? Apparently so, as the previous Demon Lord is under his command and visually the same as the one the hero's party defeated 100 years ago. He kneels before the baby and requests orders from his master. Ozrus is still trying to piece together what's happening in his mind, and just opts to kill the brat here and now to prevent any more shenanigans from happening on the fly. The ground shatters on his command as a 1,000-bone army is dug into it, trapping Servain while an attack heads his way. With a single finger, he halts it, seeming more annoyed than anything else. A single flick later, and Ozrus is turned into a memory. The deep gash he leaves splits the land like a wedge has been driven through it, and he returns to kneel before the baby. Miria immediately asks who the hell Kotarou actually is after what he'd done, since the Elfess had left saying she'd find the Seed of Hope. He was that seed, and while the two are getting to grips with recent events, Sylvain looks over at the battlefield, saying aloud that while he doesn't know how many decades or centuries had passed, nothing had changed about this place. Still the same old war zone he was killed in. Neither the party members nor this world. Miria gets increasingly mad to the point of bursting, claiming that he's the reason it's still this screwed up. He gives exactly 0 fluffs and reminds her who was originally the ruling class. They were tired of being oppressed, so they simply did something about it and flipped the balance, since it was his fate, born as the strongest of the demonkin, but it no longer mattered now. The world was full of heedless fools even today. He again asks Kotarou for his wish, and the boy manages to smile and say enough to order that he hated dominating anyone and the Demon Lord was free of his service. So he just set the most powerful entity of his time loose on the world from beyond his grave? Because that won't go wrong in so many ways. While Miria wonders what the heck he was doing like a sane person, Hyrie is in tears that he actually spoke. She also felt the same though, and Sylvain laughs heartily, saying that there were still some unusual ones around these parts. But was Kotarou saying that he wanted this guy to come with him? Before they can answer, the ground shakes and bursts once more. This time, it's not skeleton columns, but 2 hands that outsize small mountains. The 4 of them are safely in the palm of these hands unharmed, and Miria wonders what is going on this time. Around them, on the fingertips, demons look down on them, and Miria calls out what they are by the stench. Guessing the current demonic lord doesn't like being outclassed. The giant eye of the current king stares down at them like Sauron in a bad mood, and Miria admits that she wasn't expecting his capacity for magic to be this through the roof. With the rest of the 10 demons coming at them all at once and Kotarou asleep, they would surely get him this time around. One in particular seems to catch Hyrie's eye, while Sylvain stands menacingly, and the other demons say that to kill the lowest 2 of their ranks was quite a feat. There were decades since their prior vacancy, and the current lord was overjoyed that a diversion like them had appeared from the blue. Zenova, the 3rd highest, was to entertain them for a while. Kotarou is just barely awake enough for this, but he can't move his body due to the lack of stamina. Miria isn't a fan of being belittled, so she rushes for an attack, only for an unhuman hand with 8 fingers, from what I can see, to cast a spell that straight up removes a square section of her body. This was... okay, I'm not even going to try and pronounce that, so I'll just call him number 4. Right after she lands on the palm of the current lord, she is frozen solid. Another freak calls her beautiful, one named Hildark. Hyrie is next on the crushing block, as she's stamped into the flesh like a fly by the wolfish pet of another 2, who collectively form number 8, April and Galen. Kotarou goes flying, bonks his head, and lands at the feet of Sylvain, who looks down at him. Another demon tries to attack Sylvain. Big mistake, by slicing him in half with a blade, rolling a nat 1. This was the former hero, Arslad, who was number 2. The one and only way to save the guy now was to end his suffering. The first member then appears by wrapping hands around his form, the current demon lord herself, Jura. For the most terrifying being in this universe, I'll be darned if the artist didn't do her coloring justice. She apologizes for this, as anything she touches breaks due to her insane magical powers, but something trivial as such shouldn't be a pain to the former demon lord, right? His arm mutates into something horrifying, and he actually coughs a bit of blood, with Hyrie stating the obvious that at this rate, everyone would go the way of Ozras. She had to find a way to save Kotarou at least. Sylvain begins engaging in battle with Arslad and Jura, sending 3 high-level spells towards them in tandem. They just so happen to be the strongest ones of the 3 major attributes. So, what Sylvain had said about 100 years ago wasn't a lie. 3 of the fingers get cut off, 1 burning and 1 icy, along with a hole blown through the hands, yet Jura and Arslad are still easily standing like it was a summer breeze. Sylvain, meanwhile, has major damage to his arm, which got cut clean off. Jura finds it amusing how much prowess the guy has, though enlightens him that it's not enough. She's a demon godkin, something that transcends all the rest. The only one who could remotely stand a chance against her was Kotarou. He tries to reach out, but is still unable to move much due to his body not obeying him. That Elfess had saved him many times already, so it was his turn. Hyrie channels everything she has left into a single spell and flashbangs everyone, telling Sylvain to take him and run for it. The former lord only needs a second to think before doing so, being about the only one who could feasibly get away in that scenario. Number 6 of the 10 demons, Ramgris, is disappointed that their prey is getting away when she came all this way to enjoy herself. Another one says it's his turn on the torture rounds, a demon named Igni who won't lose to anyone in raw speed. But before he can go after them, Jura tells him to hold his horses. It would be interesting to draw Kotarou into their ranks using 2 of the people he'd come to care about. They could fill the vacancies they now had with 2 more capable people. The number 1 of the 10 demons, a simple slime, says that's a wonderful idea. You're joking, right? Meanwhile, Kotarou is resting silently in Sylvain's tail, at least until he wakes up while they're flying to safety. He's happy to see this world from above again, calling it wonderful and being a chatterbox, prompting Sylvain to say that he's just arrived, yet he was so full of curiosity. This was the same old boring world as always. Kotarou retorts that it's not boring because he's incredibly excited, not seeming to understand the gravity of what's going to happen to Hyrie and Miria. Freedom was wonderful, he says. Sylvain is quiet on the outside, but he's putting pieces together in his head. This kid used techniques that transcended the natural laws of this world, meaning he did come from another dimension. That being said, it was their first time being free, which was common ground aside from their high power levels. He answers Kotarou's question of what lies beyond the horizon. It's a place called the Dragon's Nest, a floating sky island that even the demonkin here avoid. At the bottom of the so-called abyss, legendary weapons, treasure, and something else is said to be waiting, but nobody who's ever gone that far has lived to tell about it. There is also a world tree that pierced the heavens. Kamina would be proud, and topping it off, Sylvain claims that this world was so vast that even he hadn't explored it all. Right now, they were headed to a place called the Tower of Time, in which the flow of time could be freely manipulated. Kotarou's weakness was his body, and his sense of duty snaps him back into ninja mode. He's ashamed that he couldn't save those two. They didn't seem to be in life-threatening danger, and although Sylvain seems to think otherwise, Kotarou disagrees, as he had heard what Jura had said about using the two women to draw him in. Soon enough, they reach the Tower of Time floating high above all else, and Sylvain lands on its outer ring. He puts the boy down, saying this was as far as his help would go. Kotarou asks where he's going, as he was starting to enjoy the company of his new friend. Sylvain says that he's been slightly influenced by the power of freedom, and he was not to be called Demon Lord anymore. He was no longer a king, and could be referred to by name. With that, Sylvain flies off, and Kotarou yells up that they should fly together again sometime. The person behind him doesn't seem so amused though. They ask themselves if it really was who they thought, not believing that Sylvain was back from beyond the grave. He was different from 100 years prior. They ask Kotarou if this was his doing, claiming to have been watching everything from here. He calls the boy to come inside by name. This was the final member of the four great heroes, the magic golem BB-28. The Tower of Time wasn't always in the sky, and many people came here to regain their youth. The killing eventually began in an attempt to monopolize the place, and that's why 28 lifted the tower into the sky and became its guardian. After they defeated the Demon Lord, it was Arslot who suggested it, and the golem was actually happy. Kotarou climbs on their head, interrupting the speech, and trying to pull the poor guy's head off thinking it's a hat. He's thrown off in quick succession and yelled at that 28 was the administrator of this tower. This wasn't a place to casually be entered. Alright then, what did he have to do? Random fetch quests or something? They go inside and immediately it's pitch black. 28 wishes him good luck while standing at the door, and a large, very detailed magic circle bursts into life below him, engulfing him in light. We get flashbacks to when he was a kid, only these aren't just any old memories. They're ones of him having to go through the succession of the Fuuma clan. He jabs his sword in the ground when facing a young girl who asks what he's planning. She was the only one he couldn't kill. This proves that his heart wasn't dead yet, and she would not be the one to show him any form of mercy. Within an instant, she's behind him and ready to lop his head off, and he's forced to react on instinct. One hand through her chest later, and he is the last one standing. She had deliberately goaded him into action by claiming zero mercy, knowing his training would take over. She doesn't need compassion though. They were ninja, shinobi, nameless blades who knew nothing but killing. Those who couldn't kill would die instead, but it was strange, wasn't it? Those who hadn't killed their hearts yet were the strongest of the bunch. The two of them had both been friends and dreamed of what freedom would be together, but that was the end. He'd never forgotten her, and his tears proved this. Somewhere along the way, his heart did actually die, and he gave up thinking it was just an impossibility. In that world, it might have been. But now, he'd enjoyed the freedom for the both of them. The magic flows through him like water through air, and when he comes out of it, he's a young boy. 28 says that life was a battle against despair, and those who were crushed by it are swallowed by depth and darkness. Those who overcome it and recognize the scars were the worthy of living again. And this tower was designed to use that fact as a test. With that, Kotarou claims that he will definitely save Hyrie amidst flying sparks of magic. He'd become about 15 to 16 years old, and his body would no longer hold him back. What was more, his limbs were now so easy to move as he was no longer an old man nor baby. Life in this world would be fascinating if this was the kind of thing he could expect to encounter. 28 thinks that he wouldn't be able to go out as a hero while naked, so maybe some clothing was in order. But after Kotarou puts a hand on its head and says he'd love to play again sometime, the golem is reminded of a distant past in which Arslad still lived freely. Without further ado, our ninja jumps off the Tower of Time and goes spiraling towards the ground, still lacking any form of clothing. He is no longer being bound by anything, including decency apparently, and is free with his own goals, free to live for himself. He is forced to take a slight detour though, as he comes face to face with the skeleton of a dragon or some such poking out of the clouds. Using a ninjutsu to land silently, he recognizes that this ain't the ground and is going to climb down to it from here. But before that, a conveniently placed magic sword with a spiky hazard for a handle is spotted and pulled from the beast's head. But in looking at the reflection, he notices that his face here was the same as his previous life around the same age. He was reborn into this world by some supernatural act, but had always wondered about one thing. Ninjutsu was the pinnacle of taijutsu, which could only be used by a body tempered through extreme training. Did they just shift his soul to this world and reform the same body around it? Well, no use thinking about it. He'll know when the time is right. He then bounces down the spine using wall jumps, going towards a bunch of kids who are brought about 10% of the way up by their leader, a brat named Act who looks like a sleazy salesman. Ahead of them was the legendary Dragon Slayer sword, which he wanted to get his hands on. The other two aren't amused, and he tells them to shut up because they're a part of the hero's party, aren't they? Both share the sentiment of wanting to go home because this really isn't their kind of place. Act keeps up his namesake by claiming he'd be a real hero with that blade, but the entire skeleton shakes as a purple knight descends on them and lands, being like 10 times their size. Its laugh is coupled by words of discouragement, claiming that mere human kin were playing explorers by seeking the treasure it guarded. But he's about to get a rude awakening. This wandering armor, as it's named, gives them 3 choices: die and leave their food, jump and leave their food, or become its slaves. I pick option D, surprise ninja with a peppy attitude. Well, the girl calls him a pervert, they don't say. Kotarou just seems happy to be there while Act stares in disbelief at the thing he was after. He claims the truth of having picked it up along the route of his fall and asks if they want it, in exchange for everything he was wearing, of course. The trade is complete and our boy is finally happy to have some form of clothing, no matter how shabby. The armor laughs and claims to be lucky, since they've delivered the sword right to him. Obviously he wants it, but before Kotarou can even move, the guy is cut clean down the middle. Both halves of him fall on either side of the bone they stand upon, and the blade is leveled at Kotarou's neck. Act has gone mad, and the girl says it might be because of the sword. It was a cursed artifact, one that would drive you insane without strong will to counter it. But attacking the ninja proves to be a bad idea when the boy is instantly floored, with Kotarou saying it might be best if he held onto it due to the effects. We get a zoomed out look of the skeleton, and, well, the item description wasn't kidding, and that it has a bonus damage against dragons, given how the top 90% of the so-called dungeon just vanished from thin air. Act eventually comes back to his senses, with Kotarou having departed already, and the girl says he was a wonderful person, and it's a shame he left her behind. You're too young for that, lassie. In the meantime, our boy finally hits the ground and by instinct checks for footsteps. He finds several belonging to humans, and more belonging to demonkin who are mistaken for bears at first. He'd head towards the area with the most steps, and in doing so, he'd wiggle worm his way back to Hydrat. The sound of a fight was close though, and that was his first stop. A gory field full of dead demonic canines. The last living one is squished like a bug, and a girl of some kind eats its flesh to satiate her hunger. We learn from the demon bug thing around her that her name is Mei Li, and she'd gotten smaller again. Kotarou watches silently from a distance as they gorge themselves on monster meat. He's happy to have found some weirdos like himself before her stomach grumbles for more food, prompting her to sit and claim that she's still hungry. The demonic thing around her says that there might be wolves around here to meet. Mei Li then looks up to see Kotarou waving at her, thinking she might be in the midst of some kind of training. So much for stealth. But by the time his eyes open again, she's right in front of him, and the bug thing, as I'll call it, says that it was time to eat. They thought this world was a wolf paradise, but she starts fretting and not wanting to eat innocent people like him. They had already died once, so what was there to worry about? Kotarou asks if they were also reincarnated here. Answer, yes, and he's glad that he's not the only one who went through that. Mei Li is also confused by her emotions and hides in the bug thing while claiming she's a monster and would eat him. Kotarou smiles to himself after remembering the people who had called him more of the same. It seemed reincarnators were all weirdos come the end of the day, and he offers a hand in friendship, saying that they were on the same level. He doesn't mind her oddities. She gets sparkles in the eyes and lightly noms his finger, which surprises the ninja, but a powerful adversary comes in behind them. The biggest werewolf you ever saw. The boss of this area, as it were, though as you can imagine, Mei Li is quick to leap at it since this guy wasn't an innocent human. With what I assume is some kind of predator ability, cheers Rimuru, the werewolf is gobbled up in a single bite, taking out the majority of its body. Kotarou introduces himself, having not gotten their name. Mei Li introduces the two of them as those who eat humans, predators. Their alias was Cannibal Hood. He's not bothered by what he saw, instead complimenting how cleanly they eat, with no blood or bones being left behind. He was in quite a hurry though, so as much as he'd love to stay and chat, maybe they'd meet along the road again somewhere else. Maybe then she'd have a friend to protect. Meanwhile, east of the Warlord Mountains near Hydrat, El Rado City has fallen, its walls broken harder than General Iroh at Ba Sing Se. An old man asks that the former heroes don't kill him, then wonders why they would commit such atrocities. Kotarou stands over the burning city, knowing that an incredible number of humans had vanished in this area. The town had collapsed beneath the surface of the earth, and what actually happened remains a mystery. He focuses his concentration on those that remain, looking for any signs of life, and he finds a human running away from one of the 10 demons. A strong one is indeed here. Behind him, Cannibal Hood is peeking out from behind a rock. Kotarou had run 1,500 kilometers, and this girl still managed to keep up somehow. He calls back that if she wants to come with him, all she has to do is say so. He's happy to bring her on as a companion. She panics with the bug thing, saying she should just be honest and says she wants to be friends. She's instantly scared at that idea because she might eat him, but Kotarou openly admits that he's in a different league, so she couldn't even eat him if she wanted to. She can join if she wants, but right now, he had someone he needed to save. To that merit, he heads into the burning city where two children are scrambling away from something. One of them, a kid named Emil, falls and hits the floor. The other tells them that they need to hurry and leave, but the question of where they would go is thrown back. Hydrat was likely a mess just like this place. Emil wants to stand and fight because there was nowhere safe left to run, but they're advised against it. The thing they were running from, the demon whose name I still cannot pronounce, number 6 in the 10 demons, has caught up. It asks why it's in charge of garbage disposal, not happy that the former heroes managed to break into the upper ranks. The power of Jura's contract seal is proportional to the darkness of one's heart. But while that party was cute, to think that they had so much inside them. That's called PTSD, mate. Number 6 had the blood of a demon godkin too, though he was a failure, unlike Jura. But oh well, he would just have some fun killing the humans. With one move, Emil's sister is removed from existing, and the boy rushes his foe with magic and new trauma in hand. His fire spell does next to nothing, and he's about to disappear into the Well of Souls. But the demon then starts burning up with raging flames, screaming in pain and surprise. Kotarou steps in and asks if all it took for this guy to die was a little firepower, being unamused at the prospect. He still had something to ask it. Where were Hyri and Miria? He also warns it in advance not to direct killing intent at him, as that would sign his own death warrant. Obviously, the demon is very uppity and laughing that such a tiny, insignificant ant of a human could take it out, and he disregards the advice in favor of the same old spell. At first, it looks like Kotarou is hit dead center, removing his torso and arms. The demon gives a cheer, thinking that he was just bluffing with that threat, at least until our ninja says that what he saw was a forced afterimage by way of his techniques. Instantly, it's enraged that he survived and wants to go for the kill, gathering magic around its many claws on either hand and making an upward slash. Too slow. Slicing downward to try swatting this fly, it fails again. And at this point, Kotarou is just getting bored of dealing with him. Number 6 doesn't realize that he's a little fish trying to eat a great white. Using his ninjutsu of phantom fire, a column of death beams up to the sky as angry embers consume the demon whole, putting the final nail in its ugly coffin. He calls that engagement a waste of time and wants to hurry on out of here, but it has some parting words. It was the 4 heroes who destroyed this city. The demon lord was wonderfully cunning in using them as bait, and had a twisted sense of humor by having humanity's former saviors destroy its final stronghold. There was zero way to save them, bar killing Jura. Congratulations, demon, you played yourself, because that's just what he's going to aim for next. The ashes of it descend into thick clouds as Kotarou walks towards Emil, who is holding the Dragon Slayer sword that our ninja had dropped earlier. Turns out, a sword without a scabbard is a pain to carry around, but the kid doesn't seem to be losing his mind while gripping it. Emil then asks how he can become that strong, because if he had been, maybe his sister would still be alive. Kotarou resolves to give the blade to him, since it seems he can handle it, and he sympathizes with Emil on the virtue of losing someone precious. Then, the ground starts shaking, and Kotarou looks up in time to see a meteor heading over them, headed for Hydrat. It's an ancient spell that only the Great Sage could use, a grand magic. That gives our boy enough of a direction. As the capital city burns, goblins swarm in with faces of glee at the torment around them. Guards say to secure the gates, and the injured could wait for a time. Everyone was to hurry up and get inside. A kid is crying for his dad trapped under a rock, somehow not flattened, and the young lad manages to break free of the guard's grip to go to him. The green menaces are about to put an end to their misery, because everyone is their enemy, and then the father sees that giant burning meteor headed their way. Kotarou, meanwhile, is fast approaching Hydrat, but not fast enough. He won't be able to stop the impending doom at this rate, but luckily there's a ninjutsu for that. One lightning speed later, and the enemies ahead are no more than entrails in his wake. The father asks who he is, and tells Kotarou to order an evacuation. Instead, he silently approaches the fallen rock and puts a hand on it. He's warned that it would take more than 10 adults to lift a piece of stone this heavy, right before he yoinks it like a champ. He came here to save Hyri, but without realizing it, was also trying to prevent the city's destruction. The Elfess had taught him so much, and he owed her a debt for that. After chucking the rock like a baseball, he imbues it with electricity and takes out the burning death above them. The father, his boy, and the guards all around the capital all look on in awe as Kotarou confirms to himself that he's no longer alone. A new hero has finally appeared, and in the distance, a shrouded figure stands curiously on a broken wall. They raise a hand to cast the spell again, but Kotarou is there in a blink, and Hyri eyes him from within her prison of a body. Little tears gather among her eyes as she recognizes him, and she apologizes for the negative feelings uncontrollably flowing through her mind. The feelings of hatred towards humanity, which was driving her to exterminate them. She had to, or they would surely torment her again. She was going crazy enough to kill them. He instantly recognizes it being the influence of the contract seal, and approaches her only to have a spell cast at him. The highest level flame spell of this world. The wall that was there previously is vaporized from the boosted magic, only it didn't damage him at all. Only burned off his cloak and shirt, ripping his pants as well. Every kind of magic she has is blasted at him, but again, it's moot point. He knows she's not being serious about this, and she looks on as he admits to being taught so much about this world. He gives her a hug and promises to kill the demon lord to set her free. More tears gather among her emerald eyes until Arslan stabs the both of them through with his sword. Oh, this isn't gonna end well. The former hero recognizes that he's no ordinary human. Miria is also there, but unfortunately for the both of them, they just hurt the person he cares about the most in this new world. Using his ninjutsu of Finger 7, Kotarou misses his strike against Arslan and removes a chunk of the remaining wall instead. He was caught off guard, but that's because he couldn't sense any killing intent. To think that he could still move with some massive hole through his chest like that. He wasn't an ordinary human by this world's standards. Hyrie uses a stamina recovery spell to fix her body instantly, and Arslan doubles down on his exterminatus of humanity. Miria is the next to try her hand, and you'd think that heroes would know how to attack together instead of one at a time, but I guess not. Kotarou is already gone as she looks on, a fair distance away from the wall. Again, no killing intent. It was like he was up against dolls. Using a ninjutsu of recovery, he's also instantly healed, with Arslan already being behind him. He doesn't recognize this kind of magic, and our ninja claims that it's from extreme training. Only those who didn't go mad could master it. But that wasn't entirely true, was it? He believed in himself and had something to aim for. Magic was the same deal. Maybe he was right, but his only goal right now was to save Hyrie, and if the old hero got in his way, he'd meet the same fate as all the rest. Arslan likes the challenge and says to come at him, doubling his own attack power while Kotarou uses Phantom Fire. The two exchange too many blows for the eye to keep track of, but since both magic and ninjutsu were techniques of human potential, perhaps their origins were the same. We don't get more of an elaboration before Miria seems to hear me and takes the hint to tag team, Kotarou being sliced good by her rusty iron blades. That's gonna be a tetanus shot. Hyrie hammers him with a fireball spell, cracking the ground below. She was sorry to have to do this, of course, but didn't have much of a choice. Kotarou, of course, lives, but knows that while these people say they hate him and will kill him, they don't actually intend to murder. Resistance to the contract seal? It was as if they were hoping he'd kill them, provoking an attack. What should he do? He has no out here, nor time before Arslan comes again. Fire and magic clash in a furious balance, and the former hero claims he's been waiting for a strong opponent like this, someone who could actually end him. Flashback to the four heroes coming back from their battle with Sylvain, and we see his smile drop as another flashback takes us to the aftermath. He walks into a huge muscle-bound guy with scars, who orders him to get out of the way. They scorned him for being filthy, unpleasant, a beggar, and traveler. He'd always been watching the world. Surely, again, that threat would appear. A monster was on the western continent, and he'd gone to face Jura as the new demon lord. Well, we all know how that went. The contract seal releases all those pent-up emotions. Surely he could become the hero and pride of this village, said those in his childhood memories. But in the end, he was being used, a fact that Jura enlightens him to. His very spirit was invaded by the contract seal. Somewhere deep down, he had the thought to kill those who used him. That's when it got to him. Those thoughts. Being disqualified as a hero. He had nothing left. He actively wanted to die. All three of them share the same sentiment, and thus attack as only demons would. Without knowing Jura's location, that was really the only way to ensure they didn't hurt anyone else. He uses one of the 12 forbidden arts, Scorching Transformation, which incinerates everything within several hundred meters of the user. It also put a huge burden on the body. The heroes lie there, presumably dead if not unconscious, and Jura's eyes appear above, looming over the battlefield while calling them a useless bunch. She orders the three to disappear. Kotarou is thanked by the Elvis for saving them, and he suddenly remembers Arslan's words. Perhaps the origins of magic and ninjutsu were the same. He attempts something that nobody else in this world, reincarnator or otherwise, has ever tried, casting the freeze and sacred stigmata to halt what was about to happen. Magic. In ancient times during the war with the gods, was the only power that the human and demon kid had to resist. This system works by materializing the ki within the body through spells, releasing supernatural energies. He has so much of it that the battlefield is filled with blinding light, and Hyrie recognizes the spell. But this was an even greater version of it than she'd ever attempted, let alone pulled off. The seal around her neck is broken, and for the first time since the battle with Jura, she's completely free. She rushes over to give him a hug, thanking him for the save, and Kotarou admits to himself that he was able to imitate the technique used on Elva. This wasn't just magic or ninjutsu, but rather a fusion of both powers. Miria sits up next, being overjoyed that she feels no rage towards humanity anymore. She's about to appoint him the war chief of Hydrat, but he goes for her ears again, all that fluffy goodness running under his fingers. Only this time, he gets a full-powered slap instead of being yeeted to the ground. Arslan is the final person we see, fading away into dust as his body chips into the wind. He was counting on the girls to raise Kotarou well, knowing that he might even surpass the demon godkin. Arslan then gets a kiss on the forehead from Hyrie as a final goodbye, hoping that the man would finally be put to rest and left in peace. As soon as he's gone, Hyrie is told to teach all the magic she knows to our ninja. Kotarou is greeted and welcomed as a hero as other villagers witnessed him bring the former party back to their senses, control Alt-Delete the meteor, and save the father from goblins. He's thanked for everything as Hyrie watches with a gentle smile, Emil dances, and Miria is leaned against a brick wall with a grin. Cannibal Hood and Sylvain are also present, but that's besides the point. What he's receiving for the first time is gratitude, culminating in the kid from before giving him a hug for saving his dad. What a strange feeling. Who would have thought that someone like him would end up with this much love? That he'd actually want to protect someone? This was thanks to the Alphys. Meanwhile, a small red dragon watches from the side, eyeing up the situation while gods chatter in their own dimension. One of them had chosen him. Guess we know who that hand was now, and they wonder who will kill Jura. The Demon Queen seems not too pleased that he's managed to undo her contract seal. Only 2 words ring through her mind like a flashbang, over and over. Kill him. Because Kotarou had saved the former heroes, he had also brought forth Jura's rage, and the demons began to trample the world. Having lost half of their elite forces, the 10 demons, she gave up trying to capture him. I realize now that I might have been calling Jura by the wrong gender the entire time, given that they explicitly give him one now. Whoops. Anyhow, Jura ordered all of his forces to eliminate Kotarou. The world began twisting towards unprecedented chaos. 6 months later, a small child steps up to some ruins in a blood-soaked field of dry, cracked earth. So this place was also destroyed. Behind them, a horrifying and huge demonkin, an orc and lizard-man hybrid, was about to eat their fill and get stronger, until the kid sends them back to hell with a single slice. We get our first look at them soon enough, and their name is Jean d'Arc, another reincarnator wielding the highest grade of equipment. This necromancer sword evolves by consumption of blood. This was supposed to be an impossibility because the hybrid was high-ranking, newly created through crossbreeding. But from her gene's red hair, it recognizes that they might be the child who've been wrecking the western continent that the 10 demons ruled over. A Fuuma like them was, well, he never finished that sentence, but I'm assuming he was going to say a heroine. Even here, Jane heard many voices of lament. Too many. Was the big man upstairs telling her to fight once more? Given that they talk about their following Fuuma Kotarou and how wonderful she is, I'm going to assume that's a yes. Reincarnators were people who had earned favor from the one who sees the world. Their powers were transcendent, and because of that power, they were feared, despised, used, but in all cases, revered. But they were also incomplete souls with great power, strong regrets, and unfulfilled wishes. When those souls grow, they would learn to master the power unique to this world. They would be those to rival the gods. A magic circle of purple energy spawns above Jean, and 2 dragon heads pop out of it alongside a demonkin. Number 3 of the 10 demons, Igni, coming to ask if she was the one who wiped out the lower ranks. Jean neglects to answer, which speaks volumes for her, and he admits that he likes her as a beauty who knows her place. That's a child at best, my guy. Igni tries to bring forth a magic blast, claiming she'd be the perfect toy for him, and suddenly the dragon heads gets cut to ribbons. Given the greatest rank of weapon to a reincarnator, now that was cheating, claims the demon. As a child of her deity, she would cut down all evil. Igni wasn't about to go down without a fight, and tries to take her by using a curse technique which is sent from his eyes. Thankfully, Kotarou isn't about to let Jean die, and the spell gets deflected by a shield stronger than anything that the demon had seen before. Suddenly, Kotarou is before him, giving the death glare right back at Igni, leaving his head in tiny masses of meat. Our ninja wanted to free this world from domination, and he was only 2 demons away from clearing the highest ranks of Jura's elite from their fragile trial of life. Staring at the bright blue sphere of hexagons, it begins to fade with Kotarou landing on the floor to Jean's recognition that he isn't a normal person. She asks him how he wants to free this world from domination, and that's a simple answer. Kill anyone who rules. All living beings should be free. Jean gets flashbacks to her own world, where she was covered by dirt, blood, and flames, but is snapped out of it by our ninja asking if she was also a reincarnator. He could tell just by looking at her. Those eyes had crossed the line between life and death countless times, even more so than himself, shockingly. She tries to claim that she was called here to bring judgment on this world by her specific deity. Yeah, he was the same as her? Yes. He's met several people like them before, and every single one was a monster that had surpassed the limits of humanity. Across all places and eras, people were drawn into this realm in particular. They had all been brought here by some kind of will. Who knows, maybe the same thing happened to Jura. It might be the existence of something higher, and if that was either Yahweh or Buddha, they would face his wrath for ruling others. Now we leap over to the end of the world, where the first rank of the 10 demons, a slime, has met someone strange who they need to ask something of. The first reincarnator, Kotarou himself, basically flips at the bird, while saying he has no interest in this anymore. The slime laughs and politely retorts that it is the strongest of the 10 demons, but then tries to coax this older Kotarou into fighting someone for him. It doesn't go well. The slime has to move back in fear after the white-haired ninja asks him if that's an order. A piece of trash like this, trying to make him do something? The slime apologizes and turns around, lacking the killing intent within that man's eyes, but values his pride as the top dog of the 10 demons more than his life apparently. Throwing all 4 spells of the highest tier attributes into a single fusion, the grand magic ray tears through earth like a hot knife through butter, and for just a moment, this little creep thinks it's won out, until it's severed down the middle. The finger technique from before turns what remains of the demon into little blobs of gel. This older menace of a man knew all forms of magic release and had mastered them, rendering magic a boring prospect. It could not possibly reach the realm the ninja had achieved. But the slime isn't done yet, because its unique skill was infinite multiplication, as if that isn't one of the most broken abilities in fiction. But even that isn't enough to stand up to this man who very quickly disposes of the slime in a more permanent fashion. Can't regenerate if you're atomized. This man was the first Fuuma Kotarou, the one who had created all forms of his clan's ninjutsu, the still living, breathing founder of the clan. Later variants of his techniques were nothing but cheap copies, for he was the one who created its source. There was not a single entity left alive that could stand against him, and before the leaders of the other Fuuma inherited his name, they were all feared as immortals. Jura and the number 2 of the 10 demons then poke their heads out of nowhere to tell him good job, and the Fuuma head calls them imitation gods. Meanwhile, our ninja has a wave of killing intent wash over him from this far away. Our ninja is about to whisk himself away to see what that commotion was about, and he asks if Jean wants to leave with him. They decline with some hesitation, and state that the next time they meet, it might be as enemies on the battlefield. But nevertheless, they thank him for the timely rescue, prompting our boy to grin like an idiot. Until next time they meet then, he teleports away and lands at the place Jura, the second of the 10 demons, and the original Kotarou are fighting. That contract seal isn't doing the guy much good, because despite his best efforts, the wind demon frenzy that his original is using just negates its effect. Jura claims him to be more powerful than the rumors, exceeding them. What's more, the dark emotions seeping from within him were nothing short of perfection for the contract seal. Unbelievable anger and hatred, all fitting for a demon kid. The tiny demon lord would make this man theirs. Not so fast, buddy. You ain't gotten past the main character yet. With the last member of the 10 demons being erased from the mortal coil, Jura was the only one left, and surprised to see him of all people here. They weren't pleased that he'd brought down all their pawns, and admit to scheming on how to bring him to their side. But no more of that. He was too much of a nuisance, an uncontrolled cannon. He would die right here and now, as the 5th Fuuma Kotarou. This makes the original stop and recognize what's happening before pulling his mask down with glee. Our ninja then pulls out all the stops and pulls the same trick as that slime, combining all the elements into a single blast which he directs towards Jura. They're curious that he's mastered magic, finding it interesting as we confirm that such things don't affect any form of godkin. The original watches in fascination and ecstasy as the young Kotarou forms armor from his own blood, which is the most metal thing I've ever seen, and claims that if magic don't work, he'd just crush Jura with ninjutsu like the half-baked failure of a demon lord that they were. They're taken aback by the insult briefly before losing their marbles, wanting to gather the strongest of demonkin and someday be recognized as a true deity. They try to force the contract seal onto the original Kotarou, but it's seemingly nothing more than an annoyance. All he has to do is flick his finger and it vanishes. Kotarou asks if they really thought such techniques would work on ninjas, and Jura claims that the two are looking down on them. The 2 giant hands of the demon lord sprout from the ground and burst over the cliffside, wrecking everything in their path. Do they really intend to oppose a deity? An energy beam charges around Jura's mouth and blasts forth into the atmosphere in sight of a nearby Sylvain. As long as Kotarou has that blood shell on though, he feels nothing, and neither does his predecessor, who casually sits where he is. Jura is not amused, as we finally see their final form, and they release a large majority of their energies with disregard for holding back. Spikes burst from the floor, reaching skyward and destroying everything in the vicinity except the 2 Fuuma members. Our ninja is about to obliterate them when they slam him with a giant finger and his afterimage fades out of reality. Lightning speed comes next, and he's soon above Jura, who looks up to ask why they, who possess the power beyond mortal comprehension, were still inferior. What were these 2 that they even stood a chance? Easy answer. A human. As expected of a human. Is that it? But in the end, both of them were nothing but toys of the true deities.